the eternal wonders of space and time, the faraway dreams and mysteries of other worlds, other life, the stars, the planets. Man has been face to face with them for centuries, yet is barely able to penetrate their unknown secrets. Sometime, someday, the barrier will be pierced. Why must we wait? Why not now?
As we consider the ramifications of an enclosed geocentric cosmology, we inevitably begin to realize that so much of what has entered into the public consciousness under the guise of entertainment has actually been a very intentional application of the mediums of film and fiction in order to psychologically prepare the public to accept a variety of concepts. Two of the themes which came to dominate the schlocky science fiction movies of the 50s and 60s were the inevitability of space travel and the encountering of extraterrestrial beings. But if this stream of pulp cinematography was indeed playing a major role of propaganda in pushing humanity towards believing in the exploits of the newly formed NASA organization and its efforts to conquer space, then why so much inclusion of alien life forms in the plot lines? Was that merely to add more excitement, make it more thrilling, to help push the underlying fake space program? Or was there perhaps just as much intentional deception surrounding the recurring themes of aliens, monsters, and beings from other worlds? I would like to propose that from a biblical flat earth perspective, it makes perfect sense to see that the alien meme has always coincided with space propaganda. The following excerpts are from a presentation given by Bible prophecy teacher and ex-occultist Bill Schniblin at a UFO conference in 2005. Hopefully this quick glance will help illustrate a very telling connection between the topics of Aleister Crowley and the occult, H.P. Lovecraft, and how the concept of aliens and creatures from outer space first began to appear within the sci-fi genre.
I mentioned Aleister Crowley. We're going to talk about him more now. This guy wrote very copiously, but this is the most pertinent thing. He said there are beings of intelligence and power far beyond, of a far higher quality than anything we conceive of as human. They are not necessarily based on the cerebral and nervous structures that we know, and that the one and only chance for mankind to advance as a whole is for individuals to make contact with such beings. So he was a poet, a mountain climber, and he could play 8 chess games blindfolded and win. He was also the leading ceremonial magician of his day and a Luciferian. He got this book, which is called Liber Alvel Legis. In English, it means the Book of the Law. And this is like the holy book of the Crowleyan religion. The religion is called Thelema, which is the Greek word for will. And it's cardinal, just like, like in Judaism, you have the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, and in Christianity, we have the Golden Rule. Well, the total thing of Thelema was, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, love is the law, love under will. And he believed this was the beginning of a new age. He thought that the Christian religion was part of the aeon of Osiris, who was a slain and risen God, and that now it was going away, and that the new age would be the aeon of the crown and conquering child. And this was in 1904. Well, anyway, next slide. The deities that are talked about in this book are called Nuit, Hadit, and Rehur Kuit. And Nuit is a star goddess, Hadit is like her consort, and Rehur Kuit is the hawk-headed god of war. He's often known as Horus, if you're familiar with Egyptian mythology. And Crowley was one of the first magicians to openly talk about gods from other planets or galaxies. In the course of what he was doing, he did what was called the Amalantra working. Next slide. In January through March of 1918, he did one of these very, very elaborate ceremonial magical workings in Central Park West of New York City. And at least one intelligence was brought into physical manifestation. In other words, this being appeared via a magical portal that they opened. They believe they opened the very fabric of space and time and allowed this being to come through. And this is a portrait by Crowley taken from life of what this being looked like. Next slide. Does that look a little familiar? I mean, it's the eyes are a little different, but it's very, very similar to the classic gray, alien. This entity identified itself as Lam, L-A-M. Next slide. And this is stuff this guy is Aleister Crowley's successor, Kenneth Grant. Crowley died in 47, and he is now the outer head of the order of the OTO, which is an occult order, Ordo Templi Orientis, that Crowley was made the head of. And according to him, Lam is a link between the star systems of Sirius and Andromeda. Lam is the gateway to the void. Notice that. It's number 71, and that's in Gematria, which is the Hebrew numbering system, is 71. That's the number of no thing. Lam is a great old one whose countenance is recognizable in all accounts of UFO occupants. Lam has been invoked to fulfill the work set afoot by Aiwass as a reflex of Aiwass. Now, Aiwass is the being that dictated the book of the law. He's supposedly like the John the Baptist of the new aeon. Aiwass is a spirit. He's not a human being. Excuse me, next slide. Now, 1 year before Crowley died, and oddly enough, he died in 1947, the year of the Roswell crash, two of his disciples, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons. Have you heard of L. Ron Hubbard? The guy that founded Dianetics and Scientology. Anyway, they decided they were going to try and carry this thing further. And they did what was called the Babylon working in 1946 January. And again, this is right before the birth of the flying saucer with Kenneth Arnold and the Roswell crash, just a year before that. They did a further magical working, and they called it the Babylon working. And the purpose of this was, in fact, to invoke the Scarlet Woman, who was supposed to be the consort of the beast. Next slide. They opened the portal wider, and they wanted these extra cosmic intelligences as influences to enter this known universe more freely. And what seems to have happened, they believe, is that they accomplished a drastic enlargement of ripping open of an existing magical portal and then not being able to close it again. And perhaps the rip they created was not possible to close. And it really caused a lot of catastrophic things, the most obvious of which is that Jack Parsons, he's the guy that founded the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He was a rocket scientist, and just a few weeks after this, he was blown to bits in a jet fuel explosion in his laboratory. But see, this is powerful, dangerous stuff. Don't let anybody tell you that magic isn't real. It is. It's just that it doesn't come from where magicians think it comes from. They believe it comes from within themselves or from these external entities. Actually, it comes from the demonic realm, and it's totally deceptive. Okay, next slide. Today, some Crowleyite OTO-type groups believe that attracting this Lam consciousness is the best way of facilitating the growth of the Lucifer Gnosis in human evolution. Now, I think you heard Michael before talk about Gnosis and Gnostics. That basically means knowledge. Gnostics are people that believe you're saved by secret knowledge. And so what they're saying here is that if you want to achieve the knowledge of Lucifer, you need to get in touch with this Lam consciousness. There's another strange piece to this puzzle, and some of you may have heard of him. Howard Phillips Lovecraft died in 1937, born in 1890. He is the author of some very strange, they're hard to classify. They're not science fiction exactly, they're not horror exactly, they're not fantasy exactly. But they're very, very disturbing books. The unique element in this guy's stories is how he blended horror, fantasy, and science fiction. Originally, he wanted to be an astronomer. He wrote, his first story was called The Hound, and he wrote it in 1922. His stories are all subtle, chilling, and very disturbing, less. He eventually began writing full time, and his tales began appearing in the magazine Weird Tales, which was like a pulp magazine, back in 1923. This man never married and spent most of his life as a recluse living with his maiden aunts. With lushly purple prose, Lovecraft created a cosmos full of supposed elder gods and great old ones, who were allegedly old when the God of the Bible was young. So these are very, very ancient beings. And what supposedly happened in his worldview is that there were the great old ones, and the elder gods came along and tricked them into trapping them in another dimension. And the elder gods are supposedly good, and the great old ones are supposedly very evil, but they're actually beyond evil and good. Though regarded as fiction by most readers, an incredible cult following, in more than one sense of the word, has arisen around Lovecraft's pantheon of world-shattering gods. And several occult masters have commented on how closely these resemble the pantheon of solar phallic deities from Crowley's system. Now, what is intriguing about that is Lovecraft's grandfather, according to research that I've read, was an adept of Egyptian Freemasonry, which is a very high-level kind of masonry I was involved in. And according to some researchers, he had access to some of these books. And though Lovecraft claims his works were fiction, he lived his own life as if they were not fiction. Two books that are mentioned most prominently in his work are the Necronomicon and the Von Aussprechlichen Kulten, which means of unspeakable cults. But how does this all fit in with UFOs? Well, for the first time in fiction, Lovecraft was portraying transdemonic entities as if they were science fiction characters from distant space or time. Whether by chance or malignant inspiration, he captured the concept of incredibly alien entities who come to Earth and destroy and corrupt the souls of men. Next slide. This was a spiritual war of the worlds, and it's actually very close to the truth.